Welcome to the world of Buddhist Audio Bookshelf. Today, we embark on a transformative journey as we delve into the Vimalakirti Nirdesa Sutra, a revered text within Buddhist literature. This scripture is a treasure trove of teachings, providing deep insights into the nature of reality, wisdom, and the path to enlightenment. We invite you to join us by subscribing, liking, and sharing this content, helping to extend the reach of these teachings and making the profound wisdom of the Vimalakirti Nirdesa Sutra accessible to more individuals. Your active participation is vital in spreading these profound teachings. Let's get started, shall we? 8. The family of the Tathagatas. Then, the Crown Prince Manjusri said to the Lakavi Vimalakirti, "Noble sir, how does the Bodhisattva follow the way to attain the qualities of the Buddha?" Vimalakirti replied, "Manjusri, when the Bodhisattva follows the wrong way, he follows the way to attain the qualities of the Buddha." Manjusri continued, "How does the Bodhisattva follow the wrong way?" Vimalakirti replied, "Even should he enact the 5 deadly sins, he feels no malice, violence, or hate. Even should he go into the hells, he remains free of all taint of passions. Even should he go into the states of the animals, he remains free of darkness and ignorance. When he goes into the states of the asuras, he remains free of pride, conceit, and arrogance. When he goes into the realm of the Lord of Death, he accumulates the stores of merit and wisdom. When he goes into the states of motionlessness and immateriality, he does not dissolve therein. He may follow the ways of desire, yet he stays free of attachment to the enjoyments of desire. He may follow the ways of hatred, yet he feels no anger to any living being. He may follow the ways of folly, yet he is ever conscious with the wisdom of firm understanding. He may follow the ways of avarice, yet he gives away all internal and external things without regard even for his own life. He may follow the ways of immorality, yet, seeing the horror of even the slightest transgressions, he lives by the ascetic practices and austerities. He may follow the ways of wickedness and anger, yet he remains utterly free of malice and lives by love. He may follow the ways of laziness, yet his efforts are uninterrupted as he strives in the cultivation of roots of virtue. He may follow the ways of sensuous distraction, yet, naturally concentrated, his contemplation is not dissipated. He may follow the ways of false wisdom, yet, having reached the transcendence of wisdom, he is expert in all mundane and transcendental sciences. He may show the ways of sophistry and contention, yet he is always conscious of ultimate meanings, and has perfected the use of liberative techniques. He may show the ways of pride, yet he serves as a bridge and a ladder for all people. He may show the ways of the passions, yet he is utterly dispassionate and naturally pure. He may follow the ways of the Maras, yet he does not really accept their authority in regard to his knowledge of the qualities of the Buddha. He may follow the ways of the disciples, yet he lets living beings hear the teaching they have not heard before. He may follow the ways of the solitary sages, yet he is inspired with great compassion in order to develop all living beings. He may follow the ways of the poor, yet he holds in his hand a jewel of inexhaustible wealth. He may follow the ways of cripples, yet he is beautiful and well adorned with the auspicious signs and marks. He may follow the ways of those of lowly birth, yet, through his accumulation of the stores of merit and wisdom, he is born in the family of the Tathagatas. He may follow the ways of the weak, the ugly, and the wretched, yet he is beautiful to look upon, and his body is like that of Narayana. He may manifest to living beings the ways of the sick and the unhappy, yet he has entirely conquered and transcended the fear of death. He may follow the ways of the rich, yet he is without acquisitiveness, and often reflects upon the notion of impermanence. He may show himself engaged in dancing with harem girls, yet he cleaves to solitude, having crossed the swamp of desire. He follows the ways of the dumb and the incoherent, yet, having acquired the power of incantations, he is adorned with a varied eloquence. He follows the ways of the heterodox without ever becoming heterodox. He follows the ways of all the world, yet he reverses all states of existence. He follows the way of liberation without ever abandoning the progress of the world. Manjusri, thus does the Bodhisattva follow the wrong ways, thereby following the way to the qualities of the Buddha. Then, the Lakavi Vimalakirti said to the Crown Prince Manjusri, Manjusri, what is the family of the Tathagatas? Manjusri replied, Noble sir, the family of the Tathagatas consists of all basic egoism, of ignorance and the thirst for existence, of lust, hate, and folly, of the 4 misapprehensions, of the 5 obscurations, of the 6 media of sense, of the 7 abodes of consciousness, of the 8 false paths, of the 9 causes of irritation, of the paths of 10 sins. Such is the family of the Tathagatas. In short, noble sir, the 62 kinds of convictions constitute the family of the Tathagatas. Vimalakirti. Manjusri, with what in mind do you say so? Manjusri. Noble sir, one who stays in the fixed determination of the vision of the uncreated is not capable of conceiving the spirit of unexcelled perfect enlightenment. However, one who lives among created things, in the minds of passions, without seeing any truth, is indeed capable of conceiving the spirit of unexcelled perfect enlightenment. Noble sir, flowers like the blue lotus, the red lotus, the white lotus, the water lily, and the moon lily, do not grow on the dry ground in the wilderness, but do grow in the swamps and mud banks. Just so, the Buddha qualities do not grow in living beings certainly destined for the uncreated, but do grow in those living beings who are like swamps and mud banks of passions. Likewise, as seeds do not grow in the sky but do grow in the earth, so the Buddha qualities do not grow in those determined for the absolute, but do grow in those who conceive the spirit of enlightenment, after having produced a Sumer-like mountain of egoistic views. Noble sir, through these considerations one can understand that all passions constitute the family of the Tathagatas. For example, noble sir, without going out into the great ocean, it is impossible to find precious priceless pearls. Likewise, without going into the ocean of passions, it is impossible to obtain the mind of omniscience. Then, the elder Mahakasyapa applauded the Crown Prince Manjusri. Good Manjusri. This is indeed well spoken. This is right. The passions do indeed constitute the family of the Tathagatas. How can such as we, the disciples, conceive the spirit of enlightenment, or become fully enlightened in regard to the qualities of the Buddha? Only those guilty of the 5 deadly sins can conceive the spirit of enlightenment, and can attain Buddhahood, which is the full accomplishment of the qualities of the Buddha. Just as, for example, the 5 desire objects have no impression or effect on those bereft of faculties, even so all the qualities of the Buddha have no impression or effect on the disciples, who have abandoned all adherences. Thus, the disciples can never appreciate those qualities. Therefore, Manjusri, the ordinary individual is grateful to the Tathagata, but the disciples are not grateful. Why? The ordinary individuals, upon learning of the virtues of the Buddha, conceive the spirit of unexcelled perfect enlightenment, in order to ensure the uninterrupted continuity of the heritage of the 3 jewels, but the disciples, although they may hear of the qualities, powers, and fearlessnesses of the Buddha until the end of their days, are not capable of conceiving the spirit of unexcelled perfect enlightenment. Thereupon, the Bodhisattva Sarvarupasamdarsana, who was present in that assembly, addressed the Lakavi Vimalakirti. Householder, where are your father and mother, your children, your wife, your servants, your maids, your laborers, and your attendants? Where are your friends, your relatives, and your kinsmen? Where are your servants, your horses, your elephants, your chariots, your bodyguards, and your bearers? Thus addressed, the Lakavi Vimalakirti spoke the following verses to the Bodhisattva Sarvarupasamdarsana. Of the true Bodhisattvas, the mother is the transcendence of wisdom, the father is the skill and liberative technique, the leaders are born of such parents. Their wife is the joy in the Dharma. Love and compassion are their daughters, the Dharma and the truth are their sons. And their home is deep thought on the meaning of voidness. All the passions are their disciples, controlled at will. Their friends are the aids to enlightenment, thereby they realize supreme enlightenment. Their companions, ever with them, are the 6 transcendences. Their consorts are the means of unification, their music is the teaching of the Dharma. The incantations make their garden. which blossoms with the flowers of the factors of enlightenment, with trees of the great wealth of the Dharma, and fruits of the gnosis of liberation. Their pool consists of the 8 liberations, filled with the water of concentration, covered with the lotuses of the 7 impurities. Who bathes therein becomes immaculate. Their bearers are the 6 super-knowledges, their vehicle is the unexcelled Mahayana, their driver is the spirit of enlightenment, and their path is the Eightfold Peace. Their ornaments are the auspicious signs, and the 80 marks. Their garland is virtuous aspiration, and their clothing is good conscience and consideration. Their wealth is the holy Dharma, and their business is its teaching, their great income is pure practice, and it is dedicated to the supreme enlightenment. Their bed consists of the 4 contemplations, and its spread is the pure livelihood. And their awakening consists of gnosis, which is constant learning and meditation. Their food is the ambrosia of the teachings, and their drink is the juice of liberation. Their bath is pure aspiration, and morality their unguent and perfume. Having conquered the enemy passions, they are invincible heroes. Having subdued the 4 maras, they raise their standard on the field of enlightenment. They manifest birth voluntarily. Yet they are not born, nor do they originate. They shine in all the fields of the Buddhas, just like the rising sun. Though they worship Buddhas by the millions, with every conceivable offering, they never dwell upon the least difference between the Buddhas and themselves. They journey through all Buddha fields in order to bring benefit to living beings. Yet they see those fields as just like empty space, free of any conceptual notions of living beings. The fearless bodhisattvas can manifest, all in a single instant, the forms, sounds, and manners of behavior of all living beings. Although they recognize the deeds of maras, they can get along even with these maras, for even such activities may be manifested by those perfected in liberative technique. They play with illusory manifestations in order to develop living beings, showing themselves to be old or sick, and even manifesting their own deaths. They demonstrate the burning of the earth in the consuming flames of the world's end, in order to demonstrate impermanence to living beings with the notion of permanence. Invited by hundreds of thousands of living beings, all in the same country, they partake of offerings at the homes of all, and dedicate all for the sake of enlightenment. They excel in all esoteric sciences, and in the many different crafts, and they bring forth the happiness of all living beings. By devoting themselves as monks to all the strange sects of the world, they develop all those beings who have attached themselves to dogmatic views. They may become suns or moons, Indras, Brahmas, or lords of creatures. He may become fire or water, or earth or wind. During the short eons of maladies, they become the best holy medicine. They make beings well and happy, and bring about their liberation. During the short eons of famine, they become food and drink. Having first alleviated thirst and hunger, they teach the Dharma to living beings. During the short eons of swords, they meditate on love, introducing to non-violence hundreds of millions of living beings. In the middle of great battles, they remain impartial to both sides, for bodhisattvas of great strength delight in reconciliation of conflict. In order to help the living beings, they voluntarily descend into the hells which are attached to all the inconceivable Buddha fields. They manifest their lives in all the species of the animal kingdom, teaching the Dharma everywhere. Thus they are called leaders. They display sensual enjoyment to the worldlings, and trances to the meditative. They completely conquer the maras, and allow them no chance to prevail. Just as it can be shown that a lotus cannot exist in the center of a fire, so they show the ultimate unreality of both pleasures and trances. They intentionally become courtesans in order to win men over. And, having caught them with the hook of desire, they establish them in the Buddha gnosis. In order to help living beings, they always become chieftains, captains, priests, and ministers, or even prime ministers. For the sake of the poor, they become inexhaustible treasures, causing those to whom they give their gifts to conceive the spirit of enlightenment. They become invincible champions. For the sake of the proud and the vain, And, having conquered all their pride, they start them on the quest for enlightenment. They always stand at the head of those terrified with fright. And, having bestowed fearlessness upon them, they develop them toward enlightenment. They become great holy men with the super knowledges and pure continence, and thus induce living beings to the morality of tolerance, gentleness, and discipline. Here in the world, they fearlessly behold those who are masters to be served, and they become their servants or slaves, or serve as their disciples. Well trained in liberative technique, they demonstrate all activities, whichever possibly may be a means to make beings delight in the Dharma. Their practices are infinite, and their spheres of influence are infinite, having perfected an infinite wisdom. They liberate an infinity of living beings. Even for the Buddhas themselves, during 1,000,000 eons, or even 100 million eons, it would be hard to express all their virtues, except for some inferior living beings, without any intelligence at all. Is there anyone with any discernment who, having heard this teaching, would not wish for the supreme enlightenment? 9. The Dharma door of non-duality. Then, the Lakavi Vimalakirti asked those bodhisattvas, "Good sirs, please explain how the bodhisattvas enter the Dharma door of non-duality." The bodhisattva Dharmavikarvana declared, "Noble sir, production and destruction are two, but what is not produced and does not occur cannot be destroyed. Thus the attainment of the tolerance of the birthlessness of things is the entrance into non-duality." The bodhisattva Sriganda declared, "I and mine are two. If there is no presumption of a self, there will be no possessiveness. Thus, the absence of presumption is the entrance into non-duality." The bodhisattva Srikura declared, "Defilement and purification are two. When there is thorough knowledge of defilement, there will be no conceit about purification. The path leading to the complete conquest of all conceit is the entrance into non-duality." The bodhisattva Bhadrajitas declared, "Distraction and attention are two. When there is no distraction, there will be no attention, no mentation, and no mental intensity. Thus, the absence of mental intensity is the entrance into non-duality." The bodhisattva Sabahu declared, "Bodhisattva spirit and disciple spirit are two. When both are seen to resemble an illusory spirit, there is no bodhisattva spirit, nor any disciple spirit. Thus, the sameness of natures of spirits is the entrance into non-duality." The bodhisattva Animisa declared, "Grasping and non-grasping are two. What is not grasped is not perceived, and what is not perceived is neither presumed nor repudiated. Thus, the inaction and non-involvement of all things is the entrance into non-duality." The bodhisattva Sunetra declared, "Uniqueness and characterlessness are two. Not to presume or construct something is neither to establish its uniqueness, nor to establish its characterlessness. To penetrate the equality of these two is to enter non-duality." The bodhisattva Tisyu declared, "Good and evil are two. Seeking neither good nor evil, the understanding of the non-duality of the significant and the meaningless, is the entrance into non-duality." The bodhisattva Simha declared, "Sinfulness and sinlessness are two. By means of the diamond-like wisdom that pierces to the quick, not to be bound or liberated is the entrance into non-duality." The bodhisattva Simhamati declared, "To say, this is impure and this is immaculate, makes for duality. One who, attaining equanimity, forms no conception of impurity or immaculateness, yet is not utterly without conception, has equanimity without any attainment of equanimity, he enters the absence of conceptual knots. Thus, he enters into non-duality." The bodhisattva Siddharthamukti declared, "To say, this is happiness and that is misery is dualism. One who is free of all calculations, through the extreme purity of gnosis his mind is aloof, like empty space, and thus he enters into non-duality." The bodhisattva Narayana declared, "To say, this is mundane and that is transcendental is dualism. This world has the nature of voidness, so there is neither transcendence nor involvement, neither progress nor standstill. Thus, neither to transcend nor to be involved, neither to go nor to stop, this is the entrance into non-duality." The bodhisattva Dantamati declared, "Life and liberation are dualistic. Having seen the nature of life, One neither belongs to it, nor is one utterly liberated from it. Such understanding is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Pratyuksadarsana declared, destructible and indestructible are dualistic. What is destroyed is ultimately destroyed. What is ultimately destroyed does not become destroyed, hence, it is called indestructible. What is indestructible is instantaneous, and what is instantaneous is indestructible. The experience of such is called the entrance into the principle of non-duality. The Bodhisattva Paragadha declared, self and selflessness are dualistic. Since the existence of self cannot be perceived, what is there to be made selfless? Thus, the non-dualism of the vision of their nature is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Vidyadeva declared, knowledge and ignorance are dualistic. The natures of ignorance and knowledge are the same, for ignorance is undefined, incalculable, and beyond the sphere of thought. The realization of this is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Priyadarsana declared, matter itself is void. Voidness does not result from the destruction of matter, but the nature of matter is itself voidness. Therefore, to speak of voidness on the one hand, and of matter, or of sensation, or of intellect, or of motivation, or of consciousness on the other is entirely dualistic. Consciousness itself is voidness. Voidness does not result from the destruction of consciousness, but the nature of consciousness is itself voidness. Such understanding of the five compulsive aggregates and the knowledge of them as such by means of gnosis is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Prabhaketu declared, to say that the four main elements are one thing and the etheric space element another is dualistic. The four main elements are themselves the nature of space. The past itself is also the nature of space. The future itself is also the nature of space. Likewise, the present itself is also the nature of space. The gnosis that penetrates the elements in such a way is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Pramati declared, I and form are dualistic. To understand the I correctly, and not to have attachment, aversion, or confusion with regard to form, that is called peace. Similarly, ear and sound, nose and smell, tongue and taste, body and touch and mind and phenomena, all are dualistic. But to know the mind, and to be neither attached, averse, nor confused with regard to phenomena, that is called peace. To live in such peace is to enter into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Akshayamati declared, the dedication of generosity for the sake of attaining omniscience is dualistic. The nature of generosity is itself omniscience, and the nature of omniscience itself is total dedication. Likewise, it is dualistic to dedicate morality, tolerance, effort, meditation, and wisdom for the sake of omniscience. Omniscience is the nature of wisdom, and total dedication is the nature of omniscience. Thus, the entrance into this principle of uniqueness is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Gambiramati declared, it is dualistic to say that voidness is one thing, signlessness another, and wishlessness still another. What is void has no sign. What has no sign has no wish. Where there is no wish, there is no process of thought, mind, or consciousness. To see the doors of all liberations in the door of one liberation is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Santandriya declared, it is dualistic to say Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. The Dharma is itself the nature of the Buddha, the Sangha is itself the nature of the Dharma, and all of them are uncompounded. The uncompounded is infinite space, and the processes of all things are equivalent to infinite space. Adjustment to this is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Pratahatnetra declared, it is dualistic to refer to aggregates and to the cessation of aggregates. Aggregates themselves are cessation. Why? The egoistic views of aggregates, being unproduced themselves, do not exist ultimately. Hence such views do not really conceptualize these are aggregates or these aggregates cease. Ultimately, they have no such discriminative constructions and no such conceptualizations. Therefore, such views have themselves the nature of cessation. Non-occurrence and non-destruction are the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Suvanita declared, physical, verbal, and mental vows do not exist dualistically. Why? These things have the nature of inactivity. The nature of inactivity of The body is the same as the nature of inactivity of speech, whose nature of inactivity is the same as the nature of inactivity of the mind. It is necessary to know and to understand this fact of the ultimate inactivity of all things, for this knowledge is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Punyaksetra declared, it is dualistic to consider actions meritorious, sinful, or neutral. The non-undertaking of meritorious, sinful, and neutral actions is not dualistic. The intrinsic nature of all such actions is voidness, wherein ultimately there is neither merit, nor sin, nor neutrality, nor action itself. The non-accomplishment of such actions is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Padmavyuha declared, dualism is produced from obsession with self, but true understanding of self does not result in dualism. Who thus abides in non-duality is without ideation, and that absence of ideation is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Srigarbha declared, duality is constituted by perceptual manifestation. Non-duality is objectlessness. Therefore, non-grasping and non-rejection is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Kandratara declared, darkness and light are dualistic, but the absence of both darkness and light is non-duality. Why? At the time of absorption and cessation, there is neither darkness nor light, and likewise with the natures of all things. The entrance into this equanimity is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Ratnamadrahasta declared, it is dualistic to detest the world and to rejoice in liberation, and neither detesting the world nor rejoicing in liberation is non-duality. Why? Liberation can be found where there is bondage, but where there is ultimately no bondage, where is there need for liberation? The mendicant who is neither bound nor liberated does not experience any like or any dislike, and thus he enters non-duality. The Bodhisattva Manikutaraja declared, it is dualistic to speak of good paths and bad paths. One who is on the path is not concerned with good or bad paths. Living in such unconcern, he entertains no concepts of path or non-path. Understanding the nature of concepts, his mind does not engage in duality. Such is the entrance into non-duality. The Bodhisattva Satyarata declared, it is dualistic to speak of true and false. When one sees truly, one does not ever see any truth, so how could one see falsehood? Why? One does not see with the physical eye, one sees with the eye of wisdom. And with the wisdom eye one sees only insofar as there is neither sight nor non-sight. There, where there is neither sight nor non-sight, is the entrance into non-duality. When the Bodhisattvas had given their explanations, they all addressed the crown. Prince Manjusri. Manjusri, what is the Bodhisattva's entrance into non-duality? Manjusri replied, good sirs, you have all spoken well. Nevertheless, all your explanations are themselves dualistic. To know no one teaching, to express nothing, to say nothing, to explain nothing, to announce nothing, to indicate nothing, and to designate nothing, that is the entrance into non-duality. Then the Crown Prince Manjusri said to the Lakavi Vimalakirti, we have all given our own teachings, noble sir. Now, may you elucidate the teaching of the entrance into the principle of non-duality. Thereupon, the Lakavi Vimalakirti kept his silence, saying nothing at all. The Crown Prince Manjusri applauded the Lakavi Vimalakirti. Excellent. Excellent, noble sir. This is indeed the entrance into the non-duality of the Bodhisattvas. Here there is no use for syllables, sounds, and ideas. When these teachings had been declared, 5,000 Bodhisattvas entered the door of the Dharma of non-duality and attained tolerance of the birthlessness of things. 10. The feast brought by the emanated incarnation. Thereupon, the Venerable Sariputra thought to himself, if these great Bodhisattvas do not adjourn before noontime, when are they going to eat? The Lakavi Vimalakirti, knowing telepathically the thought of the Venerable Sariputra, spoke to him. Reverend Sariputra, the Tathagata has taught the 8 liberations. You should concentrate on those liberations, listening to the Dharma with a mind free of preoccupations with material things. Just wait a minute, Reverend Sariputra, and you will eat such food as you have never before tasted. Then, the Lakavi Vimalakirti set himself in such a concentration and performed such a miraculous feat that those bodhisattvas and those great disciples were enabled to see the universe called Sarvagandasaganda, which is located in the direction of the zenith, beyond as many Buddha fields as there are sands in 42 Ganges rivers. There the Tathagata named Sugandikuta resides, lives, and is manifest. In that universe, the trees emit a fragrance that far surpasses all the fragrances, human and divine, of all the Buddha fields of the 10 directions. In that universe, even the names disciple and solitary sage do not exist, and the Tathagata Sugandikuta teaches the Dharma to a gathering of bodhisattvas only. In that universe, all the houses, the avenues, the parks, and the palaces are made of various perfumes, and the fragrance of the food eaten by those bodhisattvas pervades immeasurable universes. At this time, the Tathagata Sugandikuta sat down with his bodhisattvas to take his meal, and the deities called Gandavyuhara, who were all devoted to the Mahayana, served and attended upon the Buddha and his bodhisattvas. Everyone in the gathering at the house of Vimalakirti was able to see distinctly this universe, wherein the Tathagata Sugandikuta and his bodhisattvas were taking their meal. The Lakavi Vimalakirti addressed the whole gathering of bodhisattvas. Good sirs, is there any among you who would like to go to that Buddha field to bring back some food? But, restrained by the supernatural power of Manjusri, none of them volunteered to go. The Lakavi Vimalakirti said to Crown Prince Manjusri, Manjusri, are you not ashamed of such a gathering? Manjusri replied, Noble sir, did not the Tathagata declare, those who are unlearned should not be despised? Then, the Lakavi Vimalakirti, without rising from his couch, magically emanated an incarnation bodhisattva, whose body was of golden color, adorned with the auspicious signs and marks, and of such an appearance that he outshone the whole assembly. The Lakavi Vimalakirti addressed that incarnated bodhisattva. Noble son, go in the direction of the zenith, and when you have crossed as many Buddha fields as there are sands in 42 Ganges rivers, you will reach a universe called Sarvagandasaganda, where you will find the Tathagata Sugandikuta taking his meal. Go to him and, having bowed down at his feet, make the following request of him. The Lakavi Vimalakirti bows down 100,000 times at your feet, O Lord, and asks after your health if you have but little trouble, little discomfort, little unrest, if you are strong, well, without complaint, and living in touch with supreme happiness. Having thus asked after his health, you should request of him. Vimalakirti asks the Lord to give me the remains of your meal, with which he will accomplish the Buddha work in the universe called Saha. Thus, those living beings with inferior aspirations will be inspired with lofty aspirations, and the good name of the Tathagata will be celebrated far and wide. At that, the incarnated bodhisattva said, Very good, to the Lakavi Vimalakirti and obeyed his instructions. In sight of all the bodhisattvas, he turned his face upward and was gone, and they saw him no more. When he reached the universe Sarvagandasaganda, he bowed down at the feet of the Tathagata Sugandikuta and said, Lord, the bodhisattva Vimalakirti, bowing down at the feet of the Lord, greets the Lord, saying, Do you have little trouble, little discomfort, and little unrest? Are you strong, well, without complaint, and living in touch with the supreme happiness? He then requests, having bowed down 100,000 times at the feet of the Lord, May the Lord be gracious and give to me the remains of his meal, in order to accomplish the Buddha work in the universe called Saha. Then, those living beings who aspire to inferior ways may gain the intelligence to aspire to the great Dharma of the Buddha, and the name of the Buddha will be celebrated far and wide. At that the bodhisattvas of the Buddha field of the Tathagata Sugandikuta were astonished and asked the Tathagata Sugandikuta, Lord, where is there such a great being as this? Where is the universe Saha? What does he mean by those who aspire to inferior ways? Having thus been questioned by those bodhisattvas, the Tathagata Sugandikuta said, Noble sons, the universe Saha exists beyond as many Buddha fields in the direction of the Nadir, as there are sands in 42 Ganges rivers. There the Tathagata Sakyamuni teaches the Dharma to living beings who aspire to the inferior ways, in that Buddha field tainted with 5 corruptions. There the Bodhisattva Vimalakirti, who lives in the inconceivable liberation, teaches the Dharma to the Bodhisattvas. He sends this incarnation Bodhisattva here in order to celebrate my name, in order to show the advantages of this universe, and in order to increase the roots of virtue of those Bodhisattvas. The Bodhisattvas exclaimed, "How great must that Bodhisattva be himself, if his magical incarnation is thus endowed with supernatural power, strength, and fearlessness." The Tathagata said, "The greatness of that Bodhisattva is such that he sends magical incarnations to all the Buddha fields of the 10 directions, and all these incarnations accomplish the Buddha work for all the living beings in all those Buddha fields." Then, the Tathagata Sugandikuta poured some of his food, impregnated with all perfumes, into a fragrant vessel, and gave it to the incarnation Bodhisattva. And the 90 million Bodhisattvas of that universe volunteered to go along with him. "Lord, we also would like to go to that universe Saha, to see, honor, and serve the Buddha Sakyamuni, and to see Vimalakirti and those Bodhisattvas." The Tathagata declared, "Noble sons, go ahead if you think it is the right time. But, lest those living beings become mad and intoxicated, go without your perfumes. And, lest those living beings of the Saha world become jealous of you, change your bodies too. Hide your beauty. And do not conceive ideas of contempt and aversion for that universe. Why? Noble sons, a Buddha field is a field of pure space, but the Lord Buddhas, in order to develop living beings, do not reveal all at once the pure realm of the Buddha." Then the incarnation Bodhisattva took the food and departed with the 90 million Bodhisattvas, and by the power of the Buddha and the supernatural operation of the Vimalakirti, disappeared from that universe Sarvagandasagandha and stood again in the house of the Vimalakirti in a fraction of a second. The Lakavi Vimalakirti created 90 million lion thrones exactly like those already there, and the Bodhisattvas were seated. Then, the incarnation Bodhisattva gave the vessel full of food to Vimalakirti, and the fragrance of that food permeated the entire great city of Visali, and its sweet perfume spread throughout 100 universes. Within the city of Visali, the Brahmins, householders, and even the Lakavi chieftain Kandrakatra, having noticed this fragrance, were amazed and filled with wonder. They were so cleansed in body and mind that they came at once to the house of the Vimalakirti, along with all 84,000 of the Likavas. Seeing there the Bodhisattvas seated on the high, wide, and beautiful lion thrones, they were filled with admiration and great joy. They all bowed down to those great disciples and Bodhisattvas and then sat down to one side. And the gods of the earth, the gods of the desire world, and the gods of the material world, attracted by the perfume, also came to the house of the Vimalakirti. Then, the Lakavi Vimalakirti spoke to the elder Sariputra and the great disciples. "Reverends, eat of the food of the Tathagata. It is ambrosia perfumed by the great compassion. But do not fix your minds in narrow-minded attitudes, lest you be unable to receive its gift." But some of the disciples had already had the thought, "How can such a huge multitude eat such a small amount of food?" Then the incarnation Bodhisattva said to those disciples, "Do not compare, venerable ones, your own wisdom and merits with the wisdom and the merits of the Tathagata. Why? For example, the 4 great oceans might dry up, but this food would never be exhausted. If all living beings were to eat for an eon an amount of this food equal to Mount Sumeru in size, it would not be depleted. Why? Issued from inexhaustible morality, concentration, and wisdom, the remains of the food of the Tathagata contained in this vessel cannot be exhausted. Indeed, the entire gathering was satisfied by that food, and the food was not at all depleted. Having eaten that food, there arose in the bodies of those Bodhisattvas, disciples, Sakras, Brahmas, Lokapalas, and other living beings, a bliss just like the bliss of the Bodhisattvas of the universe Sarvasakamandita. And from all the pores of their skin arose a perfume like that of the trees that grow in the universe Sarvagandasagandha. Then, the Lakavi Vimalakirti knowingly addressed those Bodhisattvas who had come from the Buddha field of the Lord Tathagata Sugandikuta. "Noble sirs, how does the Tathagata Sugandikuta teach his Dharma?" They replied, "The Tathagata does not teach the Dharma by means of sound and language. He disciplines the bodhisattvas only by means of perfumes. At the foot of each perfume tree sits a bodhisattva, and the trees emit perfumes like this one. From the moment they smell that perfume, the bodhisattvas attain the concentration called source of all bodhisattva virtues. From the moment they attain that concentration, all the bodhisattva virtues are produced in them. Those bodhisattvas then asked the Lakavi Vimalakirti, "How does the Buddha Sakyamuni teach the Dharma?" Vimalakirti replied, "Good sirs, these living beings here are hard to discipline. Therefore, he teaches them with discourses appropriate for the disciplining of the wild and uncivilized." How does he discipline the wild and uncivilized? What discourses are appropriate? Here they are. This is hell. This is the animal world. This is the world of the Lord of Death. These are the adversities. These are the rebirths with crippled faculties. These are physical misdeeds, and these are the retributions for physical misdeeds. These are verbal misdeeds, and these are the retributions for verbal misdeeds. These are mental misdeeds, and these are the retributions for mental misdeeds. This is killing. This is stealing. This is sexual misconduct. This is lying. This is backbiting. This is harsh speech. This is frivolous speech. This is covetousness. This is malice. This is false view. These are their retributions. This is miserliness, and this is its effect. This is immorality. This is hatred. This is sloth. This is the fruit of sloth. This is false wisdom, and this is the fruit of false wisdom. These are the transgressions of the precepts. This is the vow of personal liberation. This should be done and that should not be done. This is proper and that should be abandoned. This is an obscuration and that is without obscuration. This is sin and that rises above sin. This is the path and that is the wrong path. This is virtue and that is evil. This is blameworthy and that is blameless. This is defiled and that is immaculate. This is mundane and that is transcendental. This is compounded and that is uncompounded. This is passion and that is purification. This is life and that is liberation. Thus, by means of these varied explanations of the Dharma, the Buddha trains the minds of those living beings who are just like wild horses. Just as wild horses or wild elephants will not be tamed unless the goad pierces them to the marrow, so living beings who are wild and hard to civilize are disciplined only by means of discourses about all kinds of miseries. The Bodhisattvas said, "Thus is established the greatness of the Buddha Sakyamuni. It is marvelous how, concealing his miraculous power, he civilizes the wild living beings who are poor and inferior." And the Bodhisattvas who settle in a Buddha field of such intense hardships must have inconceivably great compassion. The Lakavi Vimalakirti declared, "So be it, good sirs. It is as you say." The great compassion of the Bodhisattvas who reincarnate here is extremely firm. In a single lifetime in this universe, they accomplish much benefit for living beings. So much benefit for living beings could not be accomplished in the universe Sarvag and Hasagandha, even in 100,000 eons. Why? Good sirs, in this Saha universe, there are 10 virtuous practices which do not exist in any other Buddha field. What are these 10? Here they are. To win the poor by generosity, to win the immoral by morality, to win the hateful by means of tolerance, to win the lazy by means of effort, to win the mentally troubled by means of concentration, to win the falsely wise by means of true wisdom, to show those suffering from the 8 adversities how to rise above them, to teach the Mahayana to those of narrow-minded behavior, to win those who have not produced the roots of virtue by means of the roots of virtue, and to develop living beings without interruption through the 4 means of unification. Those who engage in these 10 virtuous practices do not exist in any other Buddha field. Again the Bodhisattvas asked, "How many qualities must a Bodhisattva have to go safe and sound to a pure Buddha field after he transmigrates at death away from this Saha universe?" Vimalakirti replied, "After he transmigrates at death away from this Saha universe, a Bodhisattva must have 8 qualities to reach a pure Buddha field safe and sound." What are the 8? He must resolve to himself, I must benefit all living beings, without seeking even the slightest benefit for myself. I must bear all the miseries of all living beings, and give all my accumulated roots of virtue to all living beings. I must have no resentment toward any living being. I must rejoice in all bodhisattvas as if they were the teacher. I must not neglect any teachings, whether or not I have heard them before. I must control my mind, without coveting the gains of others, and without taking pride in gains of my own. I must examine my own faults and not blame others for their faults. I must take pleasure in being consciously aware and must truly undertake all virtues. If a bodhisattva has these 8 qualities, when he transmigrates at death away from the Saha universe, he will go safe and sound to a pure Buddha field. When the Lakavi Vimalakirti and the Crown Prince Manjusri had thus taught the Dharma to the multitude gathered there, 100,000 living beings conceived the spirit of unexcelled perfect enlightenment, and 10,000 bodhisattvas attained the tolerance of the birthlessness of things. As we conclude this video, we extend our heartfelt gratitude for your attentive listening. The journey through the Vimalakirti Nirdesa Sutra continues, and we invite you to join us in the upcoming episodes. Your support through likes, shares, and subscriptions is instrumental in spreading the teachings of Buddha to a wider audience. We also want to remind you that the complete video playlist can be found in the video description for your convenience. Thank you for being a part of our quest for spiritual enlightenment and sharing the wisdom of the Vimalakirti Nirdesa Sutra with others.